So with the right-hand drive EK project, we're done with a lot of the hard stuff, and that hard stuff is actually swapping the firewall itself, and now we're getting into a lot more fun stuff, and that is painting the engine bay.
And now, you're watching the Fraudulent Medical Marijuana Card Manufacturer channel of YouTube. Welcome to BodeVision.
Hey, so what is up and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on another video. So let me give a little recap of where we are today. We officially got the right-hand drive firewall in there, and since the last video, I went ahead and I did all my seam sealer where all the seams were, and I wanted to make sure that it's really important to me that it looks like it's from the factory, and from what I've seen from all the different cars from the factory, it just kind of looks like somebody just runs their finger along and just mushes it down and makes it kind of have a texture like that. Usually on the firewall it doesn't look like a nice bead like how this one looks. It usually looks like, again, it was just smeared. So what I ended up doing is I just got some latex gloves from Walgreens or CVS, and then I just put the seam sealer down, ran my finger across it, and made it look as OEM as possible. We want to give the illusion that the car was always right-hand drive. We don't want to make it look like it was converted. Well, I don't anyways. I always want to make sure it looks as factory as possible, and I think that's the way the seam sealer looks from the factory. So I did that on the engine bay side, also on the inside, just like that. Everything is good to go. We're looking pretty good. I got the engine bay cleaned. I did a little sanding. What I sanded it with was a 220 grit sandpaper. So now we got to do is mask off the car, start to get ready to lay down that base coat and clear coat. Super hyped to show you the color. So everything that's going to be taped off is now masked off, taped off, masked off. That's what we're doing, and that's where we're at. So the next thing I got to do, I just want to wipe it down a couple more times to really make sure there's no dirt or debris inside of the engine bay. I'm going to go ahead with my wax and grease remover and then follow that with a nice tack cloth, and then we're going to get ready to spray this primer. So if you're just an at-home builder or local builder, you just build cars in your garage and you want to paint your engine bay, I think it's mandatory. You have to get a full face mask, because as you're painting those little corners, so much paint is going to whip around, get in your face and get in your eyes, and it's just not going to be a good time. When I used to do this without a full face mask, I would always get such a bad headache at the end of the day, and that was why, and who knows what that did to my health. So that's just a little health alert from me to you. As far as some tips about the actual process of painting an engine bay, you got to be real careful in these corners because it's really hard to get, and all that paint is going to whip up and it's going to cause a bunch of dry spray. The way that I go around doing that is, I don't know if you noticed in the clips, I kind of did that one area first, and then I did the other area, and then I did the middle area as far as the firewall. The reason why I did that is because I adjusted the spray fan on my paint gun, and I got it down to a nice little tight circle. That way it can be focused and I can get the paint in there where it needs to be and not have a whole bunch of overspray whipping around. And then as I had that one side adjusted, I kept my adjustments the same, and I did that other corner, and then I just did the rest of it with the fan opened up a little bit. I don't ever use full fan on an engine bay. That's just what works for me. I'd recommend tuning and messing around with your gun to see what works for you. Boom, and just like that, it's the next day now. The primer's had plenty of time to dry. It's nice and cured. Anywhere where the primer's a little bit rough, because it happens in an engine bay, especially with thick primer, I'm just gonna go ahead and sand that down with a 600 grit to knock the roughness off of it. And for an engine bay, if it laid down smooth in an area, that's good enough for me. When it's an entire car, I do the entire thing with 600 grit, but to get in all the nooks and crannies of an engine bay, it's not worth it. If it looks good with the primer, it's gonna look good with the base coat and the clear coat on top of that. So now it's time to actually see how it turns out, get into the meat and potatoes, and start mixing up this white. So the base coat looks really good. That's just an OEM Conda color, and the paint that I use is called Transtar. It's just a Transtar base coat, 1-to-1 mix ratio. And now we're gonna get into that flake layer and doing that clear coat. So as far as the flake goes, we're gonna just mix that right in with the clear coat. The clear coat that I'm using is True Finish. It's aligned by Transtar as well. Transtar base coat, Transtar clear coat. Now, when we're working with flake, let me show you the flake. This is Sem Micro Silver and Sem Micro Gold. We're just gonna do a nice little mixture of silver and gold flakes, and that's gonna go on top of the white really nicely. So, like I was saying, when you're working with flakes, there's a couple of different options. If you're doing some really crazy stuff, I don't know if you ever saw the video where I did Taylor Ray's roof. I'll put that right here so you can check it out if you haven't seen that. When I did that, I was using a whole bunch of different flake layers. There was layers on top of layers, and then clear, and then more flake. What I did there is I mixed my flake in with the base coat binder, which is just a clear base coat. It doesn't dry with a gloss finish. It dries with a flat finish, and that's how I did the flake. But for this one, since it's just going on top of a base coat, I'm gonna actually mix it in with the clear coat, and then I'm gonna do another clear coat layer on top of that with just clear. I might even do 2 coats on top of that. So there will be 3 or 4 different layers of clear, 2 flake layers, and 2 non-flake layers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do a half a scoop of gold, half a scoop of silver. That way they'll be pretty even and consistent, and you'll be surprised. 1/2 of a scoop of flake is plenty. So I got my clear coat mixed up, 4-to-1 mix ratio. And here's that gold. That's actually 1/3 of a cup, and I feel like that looks like a lot. And I'll do the same amount for silver. Man, so that's looking really good. I like working with the micro flakes because they mix in really nicely. Some of the bigger flakes seem to sink to the bottom and they're harder to work with. And then if they're bigger flakes, you got to start to use a different gun. I'm spraying these flakes with a 1.3 mil fluid tip, and that's completely fine. It'll spit out the flakes, and I'm not going to have any issues with that whatsoever. And also, I wanted to point out, I don't mix a lot of clear coat when I'm doing a flake because the flake just gets everywhere. I just want to get the flake over everywhere that it needs to be. And when it comes time for actual clear coat, that's when I'm really focused about coverage because I want to make sure it's nice and consistent. The flake really only needs to be really present in the areas that you see. All the little nooks and crannies and little corners, I don't know. Flake will go in there because it's just that crazy, so don't overmix when you're doing stuff like this. Now, as far as filming goes, usually I put my camera on the other side of that window so that way there's not a whole bunch of overspray on it. And for this, I wanted to show you guys the process of the base coat because base coat in the air isn't as nasty as clear coat is, and that's what I'm using right now. So this next clip is gonna be what the flake looks like on top of the white. came out really good. It's kind of hard for me to show you in the camera how the flake looks. I'm gonna try to get it out in the sun in a little bit. Once it's cured, I'm gonna pull the tape off in the front because that little area was green. I don't know that paint coat, so I'm gonna leave it green. It was green before, obviously for a reason. Man, I am hyped to see this in the sun. Man, it is just so crazy how bright it is. I don't think the camera is gonna pick it up. Maybe it'll pick up the flake a little bit, but without saying anything else, check it out. Man, so that is so nice. I'm about to get it pushed back inside. Ghost in the shop, check it out. I'm about to get it pushed back inside because I don't want it sitting in direct sunlight for too long, especially after it's just been sprayed. I want it to kind of soak inside the shop and let it do its thing. If that metal gets too hot, I don't know what it's gonna do to the paint. Man, so after looking back at the footage, it's really hard to represent and to capture how bright and shiny and just how out there the flake really is. Hard to pick it up on camera, but hopefully you got a good idea of how truly nice it looks. So now that you've actually seen the color is white with the gold flake. Mandy, that's driving me crazy. White with the gold and silver flake. It looks really good. I wanted to thank every one of you that suggested a color. We had to go with something that was gonna look good with the green. And if this car has a color change ever in the future, I'm not saying that's gonna happen. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying we had to consider the fact that that's a possibility. So white with the gold flake is gonna go almost with anything. And I just think overall it looks really good, really classy, really nice, and it is perfect for this car and the style that this car is. So I think I'm gonna go home and get this video edited. Right now I'm filming this on a Friday. Hopefully I can go home, get this edited, and get this posted up by a Friday. So if it's Friday and you see this, I actually filmed this morning, and you're watching this probably around after dinner, sometime like that. So beautiful day out, man. I drove the Ranchero, wanted to get it warmed up, stretch its legs a little bit. Quick little update on the Ranchero. We got the bed looking really nicely, and also I wanted to show you this little latch right there. Here's my fuel cell, looking really good, just right here. That's where I add my fuel. Pretty cool, really nice. And then also we got a bunch of the wood panels on the interior done. We got the door panels. This is just an old belt right here that we screwed, has like a little door puller closer thing. And then also the wooden panels in the back with the speakers. And then my little center console where I can put my registration and stuff. Little cup holder. Radio back there. Switch panel. Everything is looking really good. It's a really nice day, so I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like this video, let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Like this video, comment, subscribe, do all the stuff. You know what it is, YouTube. Check out the merch. I'm out.